The Beatles started in Liverpool, England, and ended with their last public performance in a very different city on the opposite side of the globe, San Francisco, California. To a Beatles fan, sort of an alpha and omega, the beginning and the end.
August 29th, 1966 is a very important day in rock history. Today, August 29th, 1991, is the 25th anniversary of the Beatles' last concert at Candlestick Park. I'm Steve Garland from KSFO KYA Radio in San Francisco, and we're here at the famous Hard Rock Cafe for the big celebration of the Beatles' last concert. Now, this concert is more than just a celebration of the last concert. It really marks a change in rock history and the music of the Beatles. They sort of changed from the innocence of I Want to Hold Your Hand to a whole different era in music. 1966 marked the change. Just a few months away from Sgt. Pepper and the psychedelic era, this truly was the end of Beatlemania.
The world was stunned. The mood of the country was somber. Americans had just laid to rest its youngest president, John F. Kennedy. Kennedy portrayed a sense of vitality missing from the political arena until his time. And after his untimely assassination, the world searched for something to lift its spirits. For millions, that something came in the form of Ed Sullivan introduced the Beatles to the American public in February of 1964. The show was seen by 71 million people, and it came 4 months after the previous all-time high in broadcasting, the Kennedy funeral. Ringo was first to set foot on San Francisco's shores. He simply passed through the airport with Brian Epstein, on his way to rejoin the band down under after coming down with tonsillitis on the eve of their first world tour. Still, the city got its first taste of Beatlemania.
Aren't you happy to be here?
Yeah, pity I'm not staying a bit longer.
My girlfriend and me, Judy, gave him a present, and they took it to him, a surfer shirt, and we wrote in the card that it was the latest fad in California.
Their arrival at the Cow Palace was less eventful than at the airport. Outside, disappointed ticket seekers, and inside, thousands of the faithful, and reporter Gary Bentley.
This is Beatle reporter Bentley inside the Cow Palace. They're not making much of a racket yet, but then showtime is still a few seconds away. We're estimating this crowd at 1 million, which is probably a little high. The next sound you hear will be that unique Beatle scream.
Women scream. Grown men flee. The police are helpless. Young girls run wild in the streets. Is it a conspiracy? Is it an invasion? Is it a revolution? Yes. It's the Beatles.
It was unsure during the '64 tour if Beatles shows resembled the movie Hard Day's Night or vice versa. Many times during the tour, including San Francisco's 2 shows, the performance was stopped short as the Beatles had to warn the crowd to cool it. Is it any wonder why we refer to this as the Hard Day's Night tour?
Universal Pictures presents the Beatles in A Hard Day's Night.
Well, the first Beatles show in San Francisco was the first show on their first American tour. And it was a crazy scene at the airport. About 5,000 girls were screaming, and they were almost trampled. So it was just the first taste of what they were going to have in America. And then the second time they came back to San Francisco, it was no less crazy. 2 shows at the Cow Palace. And they actually closed their second tour, second American tour.
think I'm gonna be sad. I think it's today. Yeah. The girl that's driving me mad is going.
Likewise, when the Beatles came back in '65, they again were plugging their new film, Help. Again, like their first tour, they started their second American tour in San Francisco and played 2 shows at the Cow Palace August 31st. Ironically, across town, the movie Help was playing.
My baby don't care.
As early as 10 o'clock this morning, 4 hours before the first performance was scheduled to get underway, several hundred youngsters were lined up at the Cow Palace to purchase the few remaining tickets.
Promoters knew they didn't have to hold their breath. Ticket sales the day of the show were unusually quick, and the Beatles played to a sold-out audience in their evening performance at the famous Cow Palace.
It was a day like any other day in the Bay Area. There was fog along the coast extending inland during the morning hours. And then the sun came out and the Beatles arrived. They landed at San Francisco International Airport at 8 minutes past 1 o'clock this afternoon. This was the scene at the airport.
San Francisco is once again in the grip of that malady known as Beatlemania, what's fast becoming an annual invasion by the English species of the Beatles. While hundreds of young things, hearts fluttering, line the corridors at International Airport, the quartet composed of Ringo Starr, George Harrison, John Lennon, and Paul McCartney instead put in at the old Pan American Air Base.
Well, it certainly is nice to be here in San Francisco. Picking me up.
Down in Frisco, Bay.
Is this going to be a yearly thing, Ringo?
I hope so. Hope so. Do you?
You find San Francisco is pretty receptive?
Pardon?
You find San Francisco youngsters pretty receptive?
Yeah. Yes. Very good.
How would you compare them with, say, the other cities in the U.S.?
Mostly the same, you know.
Ringo, what do you think about that?
Did I say the Help tour? Maybe with a touch of A Hard Day's Night thrown in.
Who gave you the cigarette?
John Lennon.
Hold it up.
We just knew.
Better put it out, it's going to burn down.
It is put out. Down here.
Now what are you going to do with the cigarette?
Yes, I think so.
What are you going to do with it?
I think I'm going to frame it.
Again, it was hard to tell if the scene was right out of a movie or being repeated from a movie the participants had seen. But the bodyguards took their roles just as serious. And of course, so did the fans.
Today's arrival, however, found far more reporters and security guards out here than teenagers.
It's Dadry.
What's your name?
Dadry. Dadry. Oh, please let me fall.
What good do you think this would do?
So I can show him I love him.
There were a few of the hardcore Beatle fans who found out at which gate the Beatles were going to enter the Cow Palace, and this is what it looked like there. And then the Beatles arrived.
The extra police had succeeded in weeding out the Beatles from their waiting fans as their limousine approached the Cow Palace for the matinee performance.
I said, is it possible to arrest policemen?
Why would you want to arrest a policeman?
Well, when I was over there, the Beatles were coming, and I saw Ringo and John in the back seat, and I was just gonna look, and some policemen grabbed me and they pulled me through the gates, and they about squashed me in the gate.
Right off their magic bus and high in the rafters above the show were Ken Kesey and his merry pranksters. Later, the event was captured for the literary world in Tom Wolfe's book, The Electric Kool-Aid Acid Test.
Are you going to tell what's bad about LSD?
Not necessarily.
That was what I was told, and I was told no place in the building. So I would say if you have a moving camera, you're better off with a still. Thank you. Did you get it good enough?
Yeah, I think so.
All right, shut the door.
The performance was somewhat of a repeat of the 1964 show, even with the added police precautions. Still, if you take the meaning literally, for the Beatles, this certainly was the Help Tour, as their use of big stadiums and armored cars in the future would reflect.
So the afternoon performance of the Beatles is over. Some 14,000 screaming, swooning, hysterical teenagers and some adults file out of the Cow Palace. Tonight they'll be replaced by a sold-out house of 17,000 to see the Beatles.
The foursome was whisked away backstage. The afternoon show had just given the Beatles a good taste of San Francisco.
What's the matter with you?
Oh, I didn't want it to be over.
Well, don't you have some records at home you can go home and play?
Yes, but it isn't the same.
Put on a record and look at the pictures.
Okay, I'll try.
The press's coverage at that time was limited by the Beatles themselves. They restrained some of the cameramen to outside, forcing them to bring back film of screaming girls to the TV stations, thereby promoting more hype and more Beatlemania. Access to the press was given in sporadic bursts and punctuated, as here, by the wry wit of John Lennon.
Yeah, so how can you expect anybody to hear you if they put you on with nobody?
No, actually, it's not. This isn't the same PA system, actually.
It's very difficult anyway. He doesn't see the point, I don't think.
Next question. Is Ringo going to continue acting? There's a possibility that he would be an actor if he dropped out of the Beatles.
The possibility he wouldn't be as well, because the film contracts for the Beatles, and if he dropped out, he wouldn't be in it, would he?
No, it wouldn't be of any interest, you know. Who wants to see nobody? You know what I mean?
Question here.
What is the closest you have come to losing life and limb?
Someplace in New Zealand and I think Houston.
Well, just generally Texas, you know. Yeah, whenever we go to Texas, we almost get killed, you know, because they were too busy guarding the oil down there, you know.
Yes.
Republicans found out the Cow Palace is located in Daly City.
Well, we don't blame the police for anything, you know. It just wasn't enough. It wasn't their fault, if that's what you say.
Yes. What is the best city you've performed in?
For sound, Atlanta, because they had a proper microphone system, and all the people that were there could hear us as well as scream. You know.
And it was a bigger place too.
How did San Francisco police security compare with other U.S. cities?
What police? It just wasn't enough, you know, today. I don't think.
Yes.
Well, there should have been more to handle all this.
The thing is, it's unfair on the police who do come because, you know, there's not enough of them and they've got to do twice as much as, you know, don't they?
Yeah. That's 40 questions you had.
Do you dread this next concert?
No. Do you?
Question there. Can we keep the noise down? I can't hear the question. Did you get to see much of Los Angeles last week?
No.
We weren't trying, really.
We just stay in, you know.
Do you get to see much of any city that you visit?
No.
Do you want to?
We don't expect to.
Really,
We're working here. I mean, if you're only working in an office, you don't see much of the surrounding places. And it's the same for us. We don't expect to see it. If we're still alive, we'll come back when we're 40 and have a look at the places that looked interesting. Well, last time Ringo and I went out when we came in, it looked great. We were out in some club somewhere. I can't remember where it was.
Chinatown or something.
Thank you.
Yes,
were you there?
Everyone says it's a good place, you know, but we haven't.
And that roadway going over the water looks good. You know, that's about all we see. They faint because they're too hot or they get crushed. If they were at a football match, they're just as liable to faint. People that faint anywhere, you know. Well, you want to watch them jumping up and trying to kiss the referee and all that, so.
Yeah, I've been hit in the eye by one, you know, I was lucky.
This is jelly beans we're talking about.
But the thing is, over here, they make them like bullets anyway. You know, they're not jelly like in England, but we don't like them anyway.
Are you afraid in terms of the day of violence this afternoon?
I mean, you know, when you get things like shoes thrown up on stage, you know, you've got to be a bit physically afraid for your eye or something, you know, because you could lose it, right?
And I don't want to lose my contact lenses either.
There have been recent reports out of England that groups should make less use of electronic amplification. How do you feel about this?
It's stupid.
Well, no one would be able to hear a thing, you know.
You can't even hear a symphony orchestra.
The whole point of rock and roll music is electronic sound.
And if you don't want to use it, you don't want to use it for TV, just keep going to the music hall. You know, it's just ridiculous. It's just stupid.
Have you opened the presents you got from fans at the airport today? Today,
You mean the sweaters?
Yes. The thingies. We couldn't decide what they were, can you tell? They look like 90s to me, you know.
Next
Long
one.
Johns. Yeah. Long Johns.
That's it. Yeah, we've got them. Thank you.
And what is your impression of lack of privacy during the U.S. tours?
Well, you know, when we do a tour, we expect to have no privacy anyway. We have plenty when we're off. You know, so you just take the good and the bad. And we have a good time.
Last question, very last one. If you were not singers, what would you like to be?
Just rich, I think.
Right, and while we do have to bring the conference to a close because we're waiting to open the doors for the second show.
Thank you very much. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot, kids.
Outside, and later in the day, violence erupted as police put up barriers which were toppled easily by the waves of screaming fans. Apparently, some people hadn't come to watch the show, but to become a part of the mob scene. If you think the matinee was bad, in the evening many were hurt in the push to get up to the stage.
By the time they came back in '66, they came to Candlestick Park, but it was a less crazy scene because they were more practiced at avoiding Beatlemania in its most extreme forms. So they basically rode around in armored trucks and buses and had protection, sort of flew in, flew out, and played big baseball stadiums, which is a lot different than small places like the Cow Palace, which are much more intimate.
The Beatles returned home from their extended 65 tour after having single-handedly saving the British economy. When they returned in 1966, San Francisco would be the last city on their tour.
One of the questions most people ask me, because I've hosted so many Beatles specials over the years, is were you at the last Beatles concert? And I agonize before I answer that question because unfortunately it's no. I was around 12 years old and my parents, along with a lot of other parents of the day, said, "Are you kidding? A rock concert? No way." So I think I've overcompensated over the years by hosting and producing all these Beatles specials. If there was one day in history I could get in a time machine and go back to, it would clearly be the '66 tour.
My dad was the biggest concert promoter here in town before Bill Graham. He did sell-out shows at the Cow Palace between '61 and '65 with Sonny and Cher and the Byrds and stuff. And he always wanted to do the Beatles, so he finally got to do them in '66. But the Beatles were on kind of a bum roll then, and it wasn't the greatest concert. But now we remember it's become a day in rock history.
Tom Donahue was with KYA Radio, and they wanted me to do a poster for the Beatles because I had done quite a few spectacular posters for the Fillmore, and so I was given the job to do their poster. The poster has got a picture of the Beatles in the middle of it, and then a yin-yang symbol above with the American flag and the British flag kind of mixed together, and it's got a black border on it and kind of like quickly lettered location, Candlestick Park. And it was one of those kinds of posters that I had so many things to do at that time that I remember I got, a little bit flustered over the deadline and stuff. So I had to kind of rush it at the end, but it still turned out really nice.
Candlestick Park. In 1966, a famous baseball stadium, the home of Mays, McCovey, Cepeda, and of course those circulating Winds. They're inescapable in this area, and even after remodeling, the Winds have been here since day one. In April 1960, speaking of Winds, Vice President Richard Nixon tossed out the first ball. On August 29, '66, it would become the scene of a Beatles concert. What was unusual on this day in '66 was that a stage was being constructed out on second base, surrounded by two fences, and flanked on either side by two mountains of speaker systems, which had been provided by McCune Audiovisual. The fans had gotten there early in the day to supply the customary decor. Throughout the day, songs from the new album Revolver played on the park's PA sound system, though not a one played in the actual show. Frankly, the entire Bay Area at the time rocked to KYA, the #1 top 40 radio station. About this time, management decided to go all Beatles, and the entire city pounded in a strange melodic 360-degree harmony of thousands of transistor radios all tuned to the Beatles in unison. When the Beatles arrived in San Francisco in '66, unlike before, they had no film to spoon-feed the press. In fact, John Lennon's statement on Christ, misquoted and often taken out of context, had the press so hot on the trail of the Beatles, they avoided them. So for the press, this meant only one photo opportunity, and the airport scene was it.
But getting into Candlestick that day was right out of Hard Day's Night. It was like, we go around the place, and we're talking the ghetto, right? We go around the place, they wouldn't let us in the first time. Then there's only 11 channels on car phones at the time, not cellular like we have now. They finally let us in the center field gate, and the groundskeeper wouldn't let them drive on the goddamn grass. That took a half hour.
I came over to this end of the stadium to see what all the commotion was about, just in time to roll my camera as the Beatles bus rolled through the gate, and George Harrison in the right window picked up his camera and shot a picture of me taking pictures of him.
For John, Paul, George, and Ringo, this had been a year of disaster. Just previous to coming on the tour, Philippine First Lady Imelda Marcos, imagining she had been snubbed by the Fab Four, ordered their profits from the Philippine concerts impounded prior to takeoff. The Beatles barely got out of the country with their skin. And in the southern United States, several radio stations decided to become crusaders for anti-Beatles sentiment, in which they encouraged Beatle burnings.
This is Doug Layton and Tommy Charles reminding you that our fantastic Beatle boycott is still in effect. Don't you forget what the Beatles have said.
Don't forget to take your Beatle records and your Beatle paraphernalia to any one of our 14 pickup points in Birmingham, Alabama, and turn them in this week if possible.
I pointed out that fact in reference to England, that we meant more to kids than Jesus did, or religion at that time. I wasn't knocking it or putting it down, I was just saying it as a fact. And it is true, especially more for England than here. You know, I'm not saying that we're better or greater, or comparing us with Jesus Christ as a person, or God as a thing, or whatever it is. You know, I just said what I said and it was wrong, or was taken wrong, and now it's all this.
But the fans here still loved him.
I just felt lucky to be taken by my sister with a group of friends, and it was sort of another 60s event, and I happily went along. I had no idea it would be such an historical event.
Well, there wasn't a lot going on. It was, by today's standards, minimal accoutrements. I mean, it was like a white tablecloth, a little bit of food, coffee, some beer, and some soft drinks. Not like the catered feast that are there for today. But the only people backstage, there were a lot of, like, friends of people. And Ringo was maybe the most gracious of all of them.
Backstage, it was downstairs. Backstage was downstairs, and it was pretty silly. I think there was the normal fidgeting, joke-telling, scribbling, eating, you know, ha-ha. Probably just anxious, pre-performance nerves, being silly and fun. And fairly quiet, actually, considering what was about to happen.
I mean, John spent most of the evening talking to Ralph Gleason, and they were witty, irreverent, but not nasty, but just dry humor.
It was a high of a sort. It was a 60s kind of high. They were nice fellows. They were little guys and very cordial and very polite. I kept thinking backstage, for a group that's about to go on stage and perform to such an enormous number of people, they certainly were calm and sweet. And cordial. Cordial stands out in my mind. I was also so struck by how enormous the police officers were and how small it made them look. But they were well guarded.
One little known fact at Candlestick. Did you know that promotion people were out front during the concert giving away Monkees albums? Seems they couldn't even give him away. Fame had yet to befall the prefab for the Monkees. At first, the groundskeeper wouldn't let the Beatles roadies through to bring the equipment onto the field. He was afraid they'd tear up the grass. But finally, an agreement was reached, and the equipment, including the standard Vox Super Beatle amps and Ringo's drums, were manually carted to the stage from the sidelines.
I was the MC. I was at second base, talking to myself. My voice was echoing back. You ever played a ballpark? You talk to a ballpark and you hear your voice echo back, and it's kind of like tape delay. And I think I said at the time, I thought that the people in Alameda were probably appreciating what I was saying more than the people in the stands, because they couldn't hear me, and I don't think they really cared. Well, Candlestick Park in August, as any Giant fan knows, Candlestick Park in August at night, it was cold, it was foggy, it was windy, and the funniest thing about that, one of the warm-up acts on a cold night was Bobby Hebb, whose only claim to fame was a hit called Sunny. And I remember Bobby Hebb standing on this stage at Candlestick Park with the fog and the wind blowing, and Bobby Hebb was singing Sunny, which was the wrong song to sing at Candlestick anyway, which was a room meant for a rock act. But poor Bobby, bless his heart, sang his heart out.
The crowd rose to its feet as the armored car entered. Little did they know this wasn't for the Beatles' entrance, but for their exit.
It's really tough to work a ballpark as an MC, particularly when your job primarily is to waste time until the Beatles could get out, and the Beatles were taking their time about getting out, and we had 5 warm-up acts. So that was my job, to try to entertain a crowd that was saying, Beatles, 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 and it got louder and louder as time went on.
Do you think you're going to be able to see the Beatles when they do come out?
Yes, I've got binoculars. I love them.
You couldn't see them without binoculars?
No.
How much did it cost you to get in here tonight?
$650.
You think it's worth it, huh?
No, I'd pay $1 million.
Why?
Oh, because I think they're great. They're the greatest thing on earth, I think.
If you had your choice of any one of them to spend, well, let's say 5 minutes with, talking, chatting, which one would you pick?
John.
Why?
Oh, I think he's a genius. He's really great. We'll just take their songs. They're so great, the way they write them and everything.
Well.
Who would you pick?
Who would I pick? I'll take Frank Sinatra.
And would you believe a mini opera glass salesman rating his wares?
Fair.
Fair? What do you mean by fair?
Well, it's nothing to brag about.
They almost have to have them to see. Have you looked out there at second base?
That's why I'm here.
Do they work?
$28 worth of children's tickets. You better make them see the thing, you know.
Well, good luck.
Well, I was lucky enough to have been there because I was a college kid and finagled a press pass by way of this Oakland newspaper called the Times, really a shopper. But I guess the production was loose enough that even a kid like me got in, and so I was in the press box. I didn't go backstage and hang out or any of that stuff, and in fact, being in the press box, although you had a seat and you were away from the noise, meant that you were away from the immediacy, the sensation of the concert itself. I don't know that anybody who was seated among the 25,000 really heard the concert, heard the music, because there was such a roar of screaming mania. Even though the Beatles were well past the point of Beatlemania, for their fans, they weren't. And so that was the seeming nature of the concert. It was really more of an experience and a phenomenon more than a musical concert. That's what everybody tells me anyway.
And after we had done all of the opening acts, the promoter came up behind me and said, could you stall a little longer because the Beatles aren't ready? And I said, the Beatles are ready now because I've said everything I have to say.
As they came out, I was in front of them, running backwards, shooting as they're coming onto the stage. The stage is about where second base is now at Candlestick. The closest performers, the closest the performers were to the audience was about 200 feet. And by today's standards, the sound was pretty primitive. You all probably have a better sound system in your house. I mean, the cheapest Akai system probably that you can buy is better than what they had there. The lighting was the baseball lights. And the minute they went on stage, the magic just blossomed. I mean, if you look at the photographs, which are in our mind, but there's a magic on the stage. I mean, they made magic that I don't think any of them captured singularly by themselves. I don't care how good Paul was or John was. As a quartet, they had a magic that's untouchable.
Thank you very much, everybody, and hello, good evening. We'd like to carry on with a song, not surprisingly, written by George and recorded by Paul. And the song was on Rubber Soul LP, and the song is called If I Needed Someone.
Yes.
they singing?
Day Tripper.
Really? How can you tell?
Well, they said so.
It is a big event now because it happened to be historically the last concert they ever played. As concerts go, it was just another 11-number run-through for them. They were tired. They were disappointed there was 10,000 seats undersold.
What's wrong?
I love Paul and I can't tell him. I want him to know I love him. He can't know it.
Why can't you tell him?
They won't let me down there.
This is a much nicer evening, incidentally, than that one was. I was wearing long underwear on that particular night, and I still was underdressed.
BBC album, and this one's called He's a Real Nowhere. He's a real nowhere.
And I remember when those kids jumped over the center field fence, that the Beatles turned around and were like egging them on.
Yeah,
and I thought, yeah, go for it.
They were wondering whether they should watch the kids or whether they should continue playing for us.
Yeah.
They were having more fun watching what was going on behind them than actually playing for the crowd.
Yeah.
And then after a half hour, it was over.
I know.
They get in an armored car
and go away.
And they're gone.
I think. Not really sure yet. I'd like to carry on. Certainly. Well, should we just watch this all for a bit? Just for... The next song is called Paperback Writer.
I could see. I could tell which Beatle was who, but I had no binoculars. But it was a fun time. Even just watching the crowd was entertainment enough. All of them screaming and trying to rush the stage. And we kind of identified with the people down on the field trying to get up to the stage, wishing it were us, wishing we had that much bravery to do it.
All right, Gail. Nobody heard him. He got off in his hotel. Okay. Okay, it's all right. And she started really crying, and then we tried to pick her up, and she just fell back again. So, and then a girl came down and asked what was wrong, and they got the, she asked the policeman, and they got a thing begged out for her.
What is she crying about?
I don't think that something happened to John Lennon. She, you know, all those boys jumped over the fence and ran into him. She thought something happened to him.
We'd like to say that it's been wonderful being here in this wonderful sea air. Sorry about the weather. And we'd like to ask you to join in and clap, sing, talk. In fact, go on, do anything. Anyway, the song is good enough. I'm gonna tell me, baby.
9 years and over 1,400 performances later, the Beatles were through touring. As the armored car rolled away, Lennon squashed his face up into the glass. As in A Hard Day's Night, always the silly image in public. This may have been the last time we saw that from John.
At the end of the concert, they went, I mean, they were off the stage and into an armored car and out. That was it. They were right to the airport, and they were gone. I mean, it was less than a minute before by the time they were off the stage and into the armored car and out, they were gone.
Acts usually plug a current release, but the Beatles used the same song lineup from their recent European and Japanese tours. There wasn't one song from their new Revolver album.
In terms of the shows, the Beatles played San Francisco, on 3 separate occasions, 5 different shows. But I think they had a spiritual connection to San Francisco as well that went beyond that. And the album they made after the last show, Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, I think is a testament to their spiritual connection to San Francisco and psychedelia.
The Beatles simply couldn't duplicate songs live that had been created in the studio, like Sgt. Pepper. John Lennon was quickly becoming the spokesman of a new generation of flower children, with their roots deeply planted in San Francisco.
All the leaves are brown, and the sky is gray, and the sky is gray. I've been for a walk, on a winter's day, just kicking down the cobblestones, looking for fun and feeling groovy.
The next year was the beginning of the Summer of Love, 1967. At the Monterey Pop Music Festival, everyone expected to see the Beatles, without realizing that the new generation they had created had indeed begun. Among the acts were the Mamas and Papas, Joan Baez, Simon and Garfunkel, the Byrds, Janis Joplin, the Jefferson Airplane, the Who, Ravi Shankar, and Jimi Hendrix. Few realized at the time, although they themselves didn't appear, the Beatles were directly responsible for the acts that did. Paul McCartney was on the organizing committee, and the others had a deep influence on the shape of the festival. And what was to become a new era in rock music began here.
Oh boy, this is really a mind fucker of all times, man. I've never seen anything like this, man.
But it wasn't until Woodstock in 1969 when the seeds planted at Monterey really began to flower.
I'm not dreaming. I am yours. You are mine. You are what you are. You make it hard.
But before Woodstock, after Sgt. Pepper, the Beatles released Magical Mystery Tour, an album and a film, which was not until later seen in America. The imagery closely resembled Ken Kesey's Magic Bus and the San Francisco scene.
He's a real nowhere man, sitting in his nowhere land.
And the release of the film Yellow Submarine in 1968 left no doubt that the psychedelia of San Francisco had indeed left its impression on the Beatles and their filmmakers. In 1971, the Beatles gave their last live performance on a rooftop of London's Apple headquarters during the filming of Let It Be. Although live, the performance wasn't public and has therefore never been compared with San Francisco's Candlestick Show.
And in honor of the last concert, you can see I dressed fashion-wise today. George Harrison wore black shoes and white socks, black loafers to be exact, so I thought I'd wear that today in honor of the last concert. Today it's more like geek style. You need the glasses and the pen protector, but I think we can get away with it today, huh? I hope so.
I think we're looking for any excuse, in a sense, to celebrate the Beatles' mystique. And the fact that it's the last concert is, some might say, is just another day in the history of the Beatles. But it's a significant date, and it's something we like to celebrate because it's a reference point for our lives and for the Beatles in our lives.
I bought my tickets. There were a group of 4 of us that went, and we each paid $6.50 for our tickets. And I remember having to talk to my parents for weeks to get them to cough up $6.50 for us to go to a concert.
There was probably no service charge on the tickets at that point in time either.
No.
Now, in my case, I had been trying to win tickets on KYA. The problem with it, playing phone contests back then, when you lived in San Jose, there were no toll-free lines to the radio stations. So every time you placed a long-distance call or every time you tried to play a contest, it cost money, and my parents really were upset. Yes. So one day, Johnny Holiday had a contest where he said, I will only accept calls collect from the South Bay using an operator. So I called the operator, said I need to place a collect call real quick to KYA in San Francisco and the numbers blah, 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 blah. And she placed the call, and he heard her announce a collect call from Stu Gans in San Jose, and I won a pair of tickets.
All right. I wonder what it must have felt like for them to be marching out to this enormous crowd and doing their songs so that even they couldn't hear them. You know, what must that have felt like to be at the pinnacle of your career and not be able to hear your own music, the music you're performing and that you wrote? What could that have felt like? And I'm sure that it influenced me and my feelings about what performing is and what it means to people. It sure influenced them, I know, that day.
It is 25 years after the fact. It's kind of strange because it's taken on a life of its own. It's really more important now than it was then, because then it was a Beatle concert. It was the last concert. They had been to San Francisco before. It was the first time they played the ballpark, but they had been here before. So at that time it was a concert. It was a good concert. We all had a good time. But now it's taken on a new life because it is the concert and the last one. And in retrospect, I wish there were some things that I had observed more closely. Had I known it was going to be my first time with the Beatles and the last time that I would ever see them perform, I think I might have taken a few pictures of my own and maybe taken some memorabilia and maybe taken a hunk of the stage home. But I can't believe it's been 25 years. I really can't. Hard to believe.
On August 29th, 1991, the San Francisco Giants observed the 25th anniversary of the Beatles' final performance at Candlestick Park. They did it throughout a Cubs game by playing Beatles songs over the park's PA between innings. Too bad the Cubs won 5-4.
A lot of stuff from that show that today would be important memorabilia just disappeared, was gone. I think it was all thrown out. The little notes that they had written to one another, things from backstage that night after the Beatles left. The people at that point, again, not recognizing the historic nature of that show, just came into what was the Giants clubhouse, which is what the Beatles used as a dressing room, and just cleaned it all up and put it all in a garbage bin and just threw it out. So that stuff's lost forever, and that's kind of sad. But you know, this building will always be a very important, very historic building in the sense that this was the place that the Beatles gave their very last live public performance.
I do not think they knew or believed that this would be their last concert. I don't give a damn what anybody says. That was not the aura and the air that was there that night.
I think there was polite handshaking, little joking. I don't remember anything specific. You know, I am from the 60s, and you're not supposed to be able to remember that much.
The story of the Beatles reminds us that as people, we can make a difference through music. 4 lads who had started in Liverpool, England, left their mark on the music, art, politics, and spiritualism of an entire generation. Without John, Paul, George, and Ringo, the world would never be the same again. As they ended their live career at Candlestick Park, who would have guessed that 25 years later, their songs would be sung at the tearing down of the Berlin Wall and at Red Square in Moscow? The Beatles have indeed left their mark on the history of the world.
And there you have it, the Beatles' last Hard Day's Night, August 29th, 1966. When they left the stage at Candlestick Park, they left a part of themselves and our rock history behind. After watching some of the archival footage and the interviews about this event, we really hope that you've gotten a feel for what it was like to be in the stands all those years ago at Candlestick Park. Thanks for watching. I'm Steve Garland.